Oh, is that snake skin?
Oh,
Wow.
Gosh, you
I
should put
only
a little
only woman I
star.
know that keeps snake skin on their desk.
Little, yeah.
Wow.
Hanging around.
Wrap it around
That's
your
cool.
testicle.
Yeah,
How-
that's definitely a costume for today. Like,
How
wear
Yeah.
that
big is
one.
Google now?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
what does
Look
that
at
feel like?
that.
Is it
Where's
rough?
harder?
Nah, it's not that rough. Snakes are smooth.
Oh.
I've never
We love
touched
snake.
one.
Would they eat
You should
that?
go to Abby's house and do it anytime.
No,
Definitely.
I've seen
Definitely
it from a
film
distance.
that.
I wouldn't even go in the room.
Yeah, no.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was gonna get him out, but I didn't want to risk being bitten while we
Oh, that would be the best cold open to this episode
Like-
ever. Yeah, like
That's the
Do
cover
it
of
for
the
the
episode.
bit, but like actually do it for the bit.
imagine that for a resume
For the
check.
bit, yeah.
She's slipped on animal urine mid-episode, bitten by a snake
Yeah.
mid-episode.
It's on brand. It's on brand.
Anyway, at least this isn't live, Abby. Or, the
Yeah.
beginning would be really bad. Welcome back to Amy and it's Dragon Month. It's May and we're doing To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Moniquill Blackgoose. Before we start, I want to acknowledge that we're meeting on Ghana land today. I am near Karawura Parry on beautiful Ghana Yata. It's actually a really beautiful autumnal day today here. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present and to extend those respects to any First Nations people meeting with us today or listening to us today, wherever you are. This is kind of a really cool book to do for Dragon Month. Abby recommended it to us. And we have much to say. I just want to introduce the author, though, before we start. So it's written by Moniquill Blackgoose, who's a member of the Seekonk Wampanoag tribe from Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and they are a recognized nation, so she's a recognized member of that nation. Also, a Nebula Award-winning sci-fi fantasy author of middle grade and YA. And I do want to say, I know it's called middle grade YA, but I wouldn't necessarily think it's just middle grade YA. I liked it as an adult book. Personally,
I think a lot of YA feels that way to me though. Like I read a lot of it as an adult and I'm always like, this is fine. This is doing the same thing that an adult book would do for me.
I didn't realize it was YA. And I was reading it being like, wow, this could really, you could honestly sell this as YA. I was thinking as I read it.
Because I didn't realize it was YA either until I read online about the book. And then I was like, oh, I was reading it totally as though it was pitched to adults. Like it doesn't feel, it feels very adult in content as well. Anyway, I'm going to throw over to Abby to tell us why she recommended this book to us as our resident dragon expert and then to read the blurb for everyone.
I recommended it purely because I read it and liked it. I read it and I really loved it. And I particularly liked the relationship that they have with the dragons in the book. And so it felt really appropriate for Dragon Month for us to read it. It also isn't just doing fantasy and dragons. I feel like it's doing more, which I'm really excited for us all to talk about now that everyone has read it. It's also like really selfish that I just want everyone to read this book so that I can talk about it with people.
I feel like actually recommending it to just about everyone I know. I do. I was like one of those books I want to give for Christmas to people so I can talk about it with them.
Yeah, I just wanted more input. I'm going to read the blurb for everyone listening. It's a really long blurb. So get a cup of tea, tuck yourself in. I might mispronounce the words. We were talking about, and I'm sure we'll get into how in-depth the pronunciation guide is in the beginning of this book, and I'm going to butcher it now. So here we go. The remote island of Mascogpog has not seen a dragon in many generations until 15-year-old Anequs finds a dragon's egg and bonds with its hatchling. Her people are delighted, for all remember the tales of the days when dragons lived among them and danced away the storms of autumn, enabling the people to thrive. To them, Anequs is revered as Nampeshiweisit, a person in a unique relationship with a dragon. Unfortunately for Anequs, the English conquerors of her land have different opinions. They have a very specific idea of how a dragon should be raised and who should be doing the raising, and Anequs does not meet any of their requirements. Only with great reluctance do they follow Anequs to enroll in a proper English dragon school on the mainland. If she cannot succeed there, her dragon will be killed. For a girl with no formal schooling, a non-English upbringing, and a very different understanding of the history of her land, challenges abound, both socially and academically. But Anequs is smart, determined, and resolved to learn what she needs to help her dragon, even if it means teaching herself. The one thing she refuses to do, however, is become the meek English miss that everyone expects. Anequs and her dragon may be coming of age, but they're also coming to power, and that brings an important realization. The world needs changing, and they might just be the ones to do it.
Yeah, cool. I mean, there's a lot in there. Before we get started, I know some of you made the snacks and drinks for today. Well, and by some, I mean Peyton.
Hey.
Do you want to describe what you're eating there, Peyton?
It's a dragon egg thing. What is it? Millie, help me out. The egg.
Macaron? No?
Egg
No,
and
no.
sugar? What
Like a
is
meringue. Like a
Oh, it's a
meringue.
meringue. Yeah, it's basically a meringue with coconut in it.
The egg and sugar.
This is going to go well. We're all searching for
egg?
words.
You're not wrong. That is what it is.
Egg, sugar, coconut, jelly.
Food.
And-
Yum.
And that's basically it. Yeah, my green food dye though, it doesn't have a dropper. It just pours. Meant to do like 12 drops of whatever, and I did a big old pour of it, and so they're bright green. But when you make them, they don't have to be that green.
I feel like the video doesn't really you'd have to put photos up on the Insta because it doesn't capture quite how green they are.
They're very, very
Vibrant.
green. I did make a dragon's blood cocktail, which you can't see, but it's bright red.
Wowie, wow.
I have a Pepsi Max. So
Oh, nice. That is real dragon's blood,
Yeah.
that stuff.
That's my drink.
Harry's
I have a hot
luck-
cocoa, like that we talked about in that one episode about the dragon smelling like hot cocoa.
And Harry's lovely partner brought him a coffee by the look of it.
Yes. I was like, I rushed in here. I hadn't had a water. I was like, I need something.
In the books, the dragons can eat like all sorts of things. So we could just bring twigs. That could be a snack, or some
Yeah.
rocks, some coal.
I loved that. I thought that was very clever. And dispelling the myths about them eating people and it actually not being good and stuff like that. I was like, that was an interesting take. I should have guessed this was YA a lot sooner. I'm not gonna lie.
Why?
And why is that, Harry?
Why is that, Harry?
There was a couple things that I thought when I was reading where I was like, this is very like I wasn't surprised by anything. And I think this is gonna come off really bad because it's gonna make it sound like you have to lower the complexity of things for YA, which you don't. But I should have guessed, like, I'm no genius when it comes to reading books. Sometimes I get surprised by the most ridiculous things. But I didn't find I was surprised by anything in the book. And so when I finished, I was like, okay.
Do you think that those partly it's the first book of a series, so it has to do this kind of foundational work? I mean, if you think of a lot of series, particularly magic schools, so if we cast back to the blurb, it's a magic dragon school. Not really magic, dragon school.
Dragon School, yeah.
It's very practical.
Yeah, practical magic dragon school. So you're setting up this whole world, like the world she comes from, the new dragon school world plus the colony world, and introducing all the characters. So book one of a series often has to do those things.
That's very true.
I also feel like it's not the type of book that's trying to be really twisty. Like, it's not trying to serve you plot twists. I found it not so much surprising, but like really fresh. I felt very, very different to a lot of the other fantasy I've read.
That's what I was
I'd
going to say.
agree.
For a fantasy novel, it's not trying to do plot twists. It's very, like, when I was reading reviews, some of the negative reviews were saying that it's long-winded. It could have been shorter. It feels really slow. But I think it's because it's trying to be slow-paced. It's not trying to be really quick pace and high stakes. It's a low stakes fantasy, and it spends a lot of time in the academy and explaining to you like the chemical science behind the magic that they're doing. And I liked that part of it.
Yeah.
I'm a huge
Same.
fan, but some people wouldn't.
Can I have a
Yeah, which is so
question?
funny because one of the negative reviews I saw was that, oh, it's 120 pages or whatever it is into the book, and she's not even at the school yet. And I was like, yeah, isn't that interesting? It's almost like it's actually not about being at the academy. It's
Yeah.
almost like it's not a school book. That's not what it is.
I think I liked the first part before she was at the academy. I liked all of that world building. I liked all of that work that was done. But I do
And
feel
also
like I
'cause I
ended
felt-
in the same spot that I started in.
Well, but when she has to go to the school, I felt like we as readers were also getting ripped away from
Yes.
the start of the book where everything is so lovely and she's obviously doing all that world building, but then when they make her go to the school, you do feel like she's being ripped away from that, as opposed to other magic school type books where they're like, I'm off to magic school.
It's so true.
I think the world building is so integral to the book as well. I also loved all of that. It reminded me a little bit of Becky Chambers' A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which I had people tell me they didn't like because they felt like it's just sort of meandering and just dumping all this information about the worlds and the universe. And I was like, yes, but I like it like that. I want to hear all the lore and all the different mythologies and all of the storytelling. storytelling in the book.
I wondered as well if, because it's kind of so centered in like a First Nations experience of a colony, and you know how I loved the way you have these chapters with the story people tell, like the story Liberty told, the story like her brother's friends tell, like about all the different kinds of dragons and the way their culture thinks of a dragon. And I thought that's actually a really nice signal to say, actually, you're going to have to read this like a cultural story, that actually they're all told slightly differently too. And so the pacing is it kind of speaks to a different storytelling tradition. And I wondered what you thought of that, because I do think a big part of beginning to read the novel is slipping into a different way of seeing the world.
Because even though it's a book, obviously, and I listened to the audiobook, which I feel like put me in a different frame of mind for it, but it really, even again, though it's a written novel, it really centers oral storytelling. Like it really, obviously she gets information from textbooks, but we don't really hear about that in the same way. She's like, oh, I studied and I did this and I did this. Whereas when somebody is telling her a story, it gets its whole chapter. It gets
even
a
the
chapter
lessons,
title.
like they're the bits that make the page, is when a professor is telling her, like it's, yeah, you're right, it's the oral learning. And when she learns herself the skill to craft on her own, it's her working with other people
That was
to
my
learn.
favorite bit in the book.
Oh my God, I cried.
Because I was like, I was cracking it as she was cracking it, and I was like, this is amazing. This is
Do you want to tell
that was the peak of the
about
book
that? Because we're spoiling, so you can tell them about that.
The science that the English do and the way to get your dragon to change elements into other chemicals and other things is they're writing symbols, basically. They're basically like representations of atoms and stuff and elements. And she has so much trouble just figuring it out and how to do it until she goes home and they're doing some of their traditional dances, and she realizes that the way that all the dances are laid out is actually drawing out those elements. And once she realizes that, she absolutely just dominates the, what is it, skillcraft?
Yeah.
Skill to craft.
It's so clever.
And she realizes that her people have kept that knowledge even after it's called the Great Dying and all the dragons died. And then obviously they were colonized by the English. She realizes that her people have kept that knowledge the whole time.
And what I loved about that was around indigenous knowledges and knowing, and the way it's so often dismissed by settler colonies. And when she described that the dances are actually designed to be seen from Dragonback, looking down, and that's how you see the skilter, like
it was
the symbol.
so beautiful. And then there's a moment where she's thinking back on all the stories she's been told about, you know, these dancers turning back hurricanes, and how she thought, oh, that's just because in stories people can do things like turn back a hurricane. And then she's like, no, they probably literally were turning back hurricanes with these dancers, because that's what it's doing.
And she's like, if they find out that we can dance and perform the same stuff, she's like, oh God,
that was also fascinating as well, that immediate, like, this is knowledge that's so deep with her people that she needs to protect it from how it could be exploited, because more than likely they have way more skilters, is what they called it. English call it. They have way more skilters than the English know, because there's so many dancers in their many cultures.
What it reminded me of is, I'm going to give a shout out to the Flinders University Museum of Art here. If anyone wants to go online, a lot of their collections are visible online. And I remember going and talking to the director, Fiona Salmon, once, and she was showing me, they have these incredible archives of all this, I think it's the largest collection of Aboriginal art. And she was pulling them out and showing me all these Indigenous artworks from the APY lands, and sort of showing how all the white people, the settlers, would look at them and just go, oh, nice dot paintings, right? But actually they're designed to be looked at from the air, and they're water lines. Their knowledge is about where you can find water in the desert and what water leads to what water. And she was sort of talking about looking at, because Aboriginal Australians were the people that really conceptualized space in that way, like a bird's eye view of the ground. And that gave me goosebumps when she was talking about being on Dragonback and looking down, because I was like, oh yeah, like it is such a good way of representing Indigenous knowledges.
I was genuinely crying for that whole scene. Like, I was listening to the audiobook and I can't remember what I was doing, probably puttering around the house cleaning or something, and then I was just stopped like weeping, because I was like, it was just so beautiful and touching.
And when she gets all the children to dance it out clumsily, I loved that. What was it, the corn planting dance?
Yeah. And I think that's interesting as well, like, sorry, because she struggles with the way that it's taught in the academy, which is a very clinical, very like, you have to memorize all of these different like ethers, I think they call it, and you have to memorize what turns into what and what relates to what, and all of these symbols have to get them precise and exact with their like rulers and various tools. And she struggles with that, but I think because the dances are so intertwined with actual life and the way that they relate to the materials of the world around around them, it just clicks in a way that just memorizing symbols doesn't.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it till you said it too, but community too, like, because her whole learning process is communal. Like she draws people together, right? Like almost like drawing the points on the skilter. She draws Theod in and Liberty in and what's his name?
Xander.
Xander in, like, and then her brother Nikiat and his partner, and like she kind of draws people into those patterns. That's kind of her power. And I was thinking about, the power of community. Even her father, she manages to draw her father back in.
It's really interesting on a reread, because I reread the first third before this, knowing about the dancing and what the dancing means to them. When she first finds, like, when you reread it and she first finds the dragon egg and brings it back to her community, and they talk about the dances from the get-go, and knowing what the dances are going to mean, it just adds so much meaning to that beginning there already.
Even though she immediately obviously is like, we cannot tell the English, we cannot let them know that we have this knowledge, but she does immediately go and share it with Theod. I just thought that was really nice.
Yeah, and then they're all like, oh, you cheaters. And they're like, he is never past this at all. And he's getting way better. What is going on here? And he's like,
I thought he was such a great character too, because the whole time I didn't know what direction they were going to take him.
Yeah.
I didn't know what he'd end up like.
I like Sander as well. And the wax tablet I found so interesting because
Can I tell you, I think it's maybe the second time he brings it out.
Can you just explain to listeners what it is?
Oh, so it's just a wax tablet that he writes on, and he's got a little mechanism in it that will heat it up to like erase it basically. But it's
we
basically
forgot to say this was steampunk as well, didn't we?
It's very steampunk.
Yeah.
But when he was writing on it, I did have a moment where I had to pause the recording and go, oh my God, he's autistic.
Yeah, I know.
And then I just had to go and process that for a while because I was so shocked by it because I hadn't even thought about it. And then I had a little cry, and then I came back and kept listening. But I was like, oh my God, he's just a character in the book, and he's just has his writing tablet.
And his explanation of like what led to him not feeling comfortable talking, and how verbally it's so overwhelming and stuff like that. That it's such a short part of that chapter, and it is a fair bit late. And I was like, this is so beautifully written because it's not.
I think I picked it when he sat down in class and he had his like little clay and he had all his fidgets. And then the way he's so shocked that she doesn't expect him to be different. You know, when she says, come and have lunch with me, and he's like, I'm just weird, like, and she's like, that's fine. You don't have to be any other way.
Yeah, whatever.
It's so heartbreaking as well, I think, towards the end of the book when she visits him with his mum and sister. And then he's explaining to her like his life essentially and his childhood and how, you know, the kinds of traumas he's gone through. And it's so heartbreaking. But I think that's kind of one of the things that this book is doing. It's not just showing the way that these colonial structures and impulses are smothering and erasing of indigenous peoples and knowledges, but also the other types of people that get beaten down in this like homogenizing kind of culture.
Yeah. Like it's literally hurting everyone except whatever that terrible, terrible boy's name is.
What was
his terrible,
his name?
terrible father.
Yeah, what is his name?
Dagmar the girls. Dagmar's the girls. It's I remember there's 3 of them, right?
I haven't even committed them to memory. I hate them so much.
I know. They turn up at that first lunch she's having like with Marta.
Even Marta, right? Like I stopped myself eventually, but I did kind of keep expecting her to have like a bit of a, not redemption, but like to come good, you know?
Yeah.
So maybe in a later book.
Yeah, maybe. But it was more satisfying to get to the end and have her be like, she's still brainwashed, but she obviously means well, which is great. And then sometimes that helps and sometimes that hurts, which is so true of real life. But I was actually just kind of at the end like, no, I think it's good that she's made a little bit of progress, but is clearly so entrenched in the thinking of the English because, like Justina says, it's about how the English way of life is smothering everyone, basically. And she, like, you can, like, she's so unhappy. And then when she reveals, like, oh, actually, I've always wanted to be a dragon rider for these reasons, and you're like, okay, girl, we'll do it. Like, break free,
she has enough privilege, right, to be kept in the system. She's like pretty and she can almost fit in. She's just always on the brink.
Almost got the right
connections. And even when they're talking about, like, for example, there's a lot of tension around just, again, the way the English conceive of dragons and like the relationship to dragons. And Theod and Anequs are both really worried about their dragons not being being taken away from them, or them not being able to be with their dragons. And then we find out that, like, you can take your dragons home for longer periods of time, but you have to have like a dragon keep, like essentially like a stable for them.
Yeah.
Wherever you're going.
Dragon Hall.
And then Marta's father talks about how he's going to build one and hire someone to do it so she can bring her dragon home for long periods. And it's like, that's a level of privilege that you just like.
But then when Anequs' father builds one for Copper and for
Thea,
Kasapa, like he goes out there and builds a shelter himself by three-sided shelter and puts mats down for them, and it's just like, that just made that even more powerful, I think.
But that was something that I noticed as well, like when Anequs first goes to the academy and is finding out that only when your dragon gets to a certain size, they're not allowed to be indoors anymore.
Yeah.
She's like, but dragons are part of the community, not separate from it. So it's really
and part of the person too, right? Like they're joined. They're like, it's like ET. They feel what each other feels.
Like ET.
It's an interesting comparison.
Of all the pools, yeah, I love it. No, but it's true. It's true. One of the reviews that I read was like, this book is marketed to be about dragons, and there was just not enough dragon content. And I was like, you do realize that her dragon is with her for 95% of the book. Like, the dragon is in almost every scene. What are you talking about?
There's dragons in every chapter.
Like,
it's about dragons.
But because they don't fly on the dragons and go and breathe fire, you know what? Like, it's because it's not that traditional idea of exactly
violence. I had this discussion.
There wasn't enough dragons.
I gave a lecture this morning. I gave my Westerns lecture, and I was talking about the history of violence on frontiers and stuff, and challenging them to think of non-violence, like how you could represent things in non-violent ways if you do a kind of, because there's many histories, right? Like there's the violent histories, and then there's a lot of other histories as well, and we get one story of violence. And a couple of people stayed back after the lecture, and one person said to me, but you can't have a story without violence. There's no story. And I was like, isn't that interesting? Because I was like, that's our culture. Like our culture, stories are violent stories. But part of what Anequs is doing is sort of revealing other stories, other ways to think about the world.
It is so interesting that the white people in this book are constantly thinking about dragons as weapons, but Anequs never thinks of a dragon as a weapon. It's just that white people will find a way to, well, specifically like imperialist nations in general, really, will find any way to turn something into a weapon and use it against people.
Yeah, they also view every, like, what they say, they call them Nakis. They view every form of their like communal togetherness as a sign of potential rebellion or uprising, and I did find that really interesting, because Anequs doesn't see it like that, because it's family and like community, and they're like, oh, you can't have gone there, those people are rebel rousers, and she's like
we just went to meet our cousins, like, what are you talking
she's
about?
like, I don't understand this. And I find that interesting, because that feels incredibly fucking accurate to a colonial mind.
Sorry to interrupt, but I feel like Abby's camera just went off, and I feel like the snake escaped.
I was just going to say, I think, is she tripping on animals right now? What's going on?
She's off to get
She's
a dragon.
listening to us speculate.
I think she got really hungry and she's eating a snake skin right now.
Yeah, possibly.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
yeah, like witchcraft.
Well, at least it's a renewable resource, I guess.
She's just getting closer to her snake.
Yeah.
All over. All is well.
All is well.
You ate the snake skin.
Yeah,
what?
I know.
What did I miss?
Abby, every time your camera goes off, we're all going to be speculating about what animal you're
what disaster is happening.
No,
Imagine just watching
my
behind
father
as it
got
comes
home
out of
and
the tank.
I needed to tell him I was in a meeting.
A meeting? God. What are we to you?
We're just
colleagues.
Colleagues.
Co-workers.
Do you hear that, listeners?
Stay in your box.
She
Stay in
doesn't
your
even
box,
consider
mate.
this fun.
One thing I was going to
apologies.
say before, when talking about Sandra, actually, was I was thinking towards the end that, like, I've never seen an author use the setting of a school so well to show diversity, because it is the perfect place to do that, because everyone has to go to school. And so you get all sorts of people who probably wouldn't normally cross paths outside of that institution. And you get to show all different kinds of people. And she does a really good job of highlighting all of the people who are on the fringes of the mainstream society in that, and how they come together.
And also, I thought of you too, Peyton, because she is very good at showing class at all points, right? The idea of debt thralls and being in debt and having to work off debt. And then the cannery, like that Nikiat is staying, her brother Nikiat is having to work in a cannery cannery, like in the worst kind of conditions, and sleeps somewhere where he's not safe. And that's your first introduction to the city of Vastagot is at the working classes.
Yeah, and you see whenever she goes back home, you can see how they're just like, organizing the latest haul and putting it into a communal storage space where everyone can just get what they need. And it shows a completely different way of living that's totally communal, and everyone has what they need and everyone takes care of each other. Yeah.
And there's also like she exists across a lot of different like social standings and worlds, which adds an extra layer of complexity for her to understand this really complex social and class system. But because she's a student at this prestigious academy and she's a dragoneer, she has all of this. She's considered like a higher status, but at the same time, very much not. And there's that constant tension where, especially like with like Liberty, who is the first friend that she makes at the academy.
Yeah, and she's a maid,
servant,
like a debt thrall.
Yes.
She has to pay off her debt before she can leave.
The sewing machine scene is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain what that is, guys? People need to know.
Yeah.
So she
finds read the books that we set for book club.
Like, but a lot of people will not read it before we talk about it. I feel like I'm nagging now. I'm just gonna.
No, that's good. Someone should tell us that to remind us to explain.
What is it for though? What's the holiday? I've forgotten.
It's
Yule.
Yule.
Yeah.
So she gives Liberty a sewing machine, and Liberty's just amazed because it must have been so expensive. But Anequs obviously doesn't have a lot of money, and she's like, "No, I actually found it, and it was pretty much completely broken. And my brother helped me mend it together, and I just want to give it to you because I know that you love to sew and you like to fix up little things, and this is something you can do in your spare time." And to somebody like Liberty, who is just absolutely floored by the suggestion of being treated like a human,
but not only that, it's not just to fix things up, it's so that she can mend things in her spare time for extra money.
Extra money, yeah, that's right. And if they
she buys her way out of her thraldom.
But it's so sweet, and just the way that she describes Liberty's like posture and the way that she is in that scene is so filled with raw emotion, because you can feel just how awful she's been treated for her entire death thrall, and then right toward the end there, she gets somebody that gives her hope, somebody that gives her a gift, and somebody that actually just wants to talk to her.
And I also think it's worth mentioning that the idea of a death thrall is so like fucked, honestly. Like the debts that they have are, I think Theod is also technically in debt because his dragon chose him. Originally they had wanted to destroy or kill his dragon and then force him into thraldom to pay off the cost of the dragon's egg.
So can I tell you, I'm having some synchronous creepiness reading this book because I'm currently working on a book set in Nantucket in like the 17th and 18th centuries, and it's Wampanoag land, and it's dealing with indentured servants as well. And so the debt thralls are like a direct line from history of indentured servants, because then in this book they also have thralls who are slaves, basically black.
I was going to say that was so interesting to me because I feel like a lot of books that directly base their lore on the real world or sort of vaguely base their are like, we're not going to worry about slavery. We're just going to pretend that doesn't exist. We're not going to make an analogy for it. Whereas this book isn't. It's like, no, Liberty is black. That's worth mentioning.
Yeah, we have.
Her parents were not indentured thralls. They were thralls. And I just thought, like, I shouldn't have been surprised because that is what this book is tackling. But I was like, oh wow, it is actually just going to be like, hey, there was slavery.
Yeah, she tells the story of how her parents were slaves in like a different country that has slavery without this idea of a debt.
That different country, though, I think when you keep reading, is the South. It's the South, And
her parents are escaped slaves, but they escaped slavery to become thralls because the idea is that they then have the ability to eventually buy their way out of thraldom, which is also like the debt they owe is just existing. Like it's the debt they owe for being in the world.
Even that is purchasable. Like even though they are paying off a debt, that debt is purchasable by other people who then they have to pay the debt off to that person.
Freeze the debt,
Yeah.
And
so
then
I'm
sure the idea is that you can't ever pay it off.
Yeah.
It's just
because
that it's not slavery.
Legal stuff as well, isn't there? Is it with Theod where they were going to sue? They were going to take it to the moot or whatever it was, and then because Frau Kuiper took him in and protected him
She
from
took on
that, he
his
had his
debt.
debt, but then also required that the legal debt that failed was also lumped on, and they just piled it on and on. And she said, well, there's nothing we can do about that. You have to pay this off.
I do
And it was
find it
like
interesting
triple.
how I think it approaches all of these really tangled threads of colonialism in such a nuanced and like complex way. Like we were talking about with Marta, she's obviously internalized quite a lot of this like system, even the parts of it that she feels trapped by. And she's not a bad person, but she's definitely like, it doesn't let her off the hook for all of her white saviorism, for her classism. But it's
And
still,
Anequs
I
has to
think, actually
push her
quite
too,
empathetic.
right? Like,
yeah.
It's not even like, oh, I made a friend, a quote, knacky friend, and now I see the world differently. Like, Anequs still has to challenge her on so much stuff.
And I feel like Frau Kuiper is the same in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much she's doing that is like, you can see.
You want to like her so much.
I know. She's so complex because I love
But then
she's a lesbian.
I know. And her
but then
dragon was
she's so patronizing,
cool.
though. Like,
and then she'll say something
like, you
to
must
Anequs
behave
and you're
yourselves
like,
because it reflects on me.
up.
Like, I promised that you will be civilized, so you must be civilized.
She's like, I'm trying to save your people by showing how well you can assimilate into English culture.
Yeah.
And then she can't understand that Anequs is like, I don't want that.
I thought the reveal of her and what's her name, Frau Brinkerhoff, was great. I loved that when she sees them kissing and she's like, oh, okay, so that's something that they would be condemned for, that they have to keep secret.
I feel like it injects the empathy right when it's needed.
Yeah.
Because like you are doing this sort of back and forth with her being like, oh, she's helping, but she's also so terrible sometimes. And so in that moment, you get that little jolt of empathy and you're like, okay. But then again, in like the next chapter, she says something else shitty. And then you're like, okay, now I'm back over here.
She was really shitty when she came to the room and she sat down and spoke to her. And I was like, oh, we're going to get this really softer side to Frau Kuiper. And then when she left, I was like, you bitch. Like, can you just have a bit of empathy, please?
But that's what I was going to say before about Justina's point about how awful the debt thraldom was. Is there something about putting it in a fantasy context and this world building that just casts it into relief? Because, First Nations histories in the US are pretty unknown. Like, they're pretty hidden. They're not great at acknowledging First Nations history. Where obviously in Australia we have a shocking settler colony with a lot of violence, a lot of horrors that still happen. And I feel like because we're in a university context, we're more aware of it probably. But I think there's something about putting it in a fantasy context that puts, say, people like me, like a white settler colonist person, in Anequs's shoes in a way where all the systems are more visible somehow. I don't know if you agree with that.
I wonder if it's just because we are so used to talking about our world the way we are.
Yeah.
And we're brought up in the way where we are. We're not like, not to be like, oh, slavery is just totally normal. But we're like, well, it happened. And I know that it happened in this world. And so I accept that. Whereas when you inject it into a fantasy world, you're like, well, it didn't need to happen in this fantasy world. And so, that's not fair. That's gross. And so I think maybe you just have to face it more.
And I think
you do have to acknowledge it more.
When you have a point of view character like Anequs, who is someone who's so empathetic, so curious, so like we already brought up all the storytelling, but I was really struck by how ready and willing she's always is to hear people tell their stories and their own mythologies and folklores. And it helps her to understand, I guess, where these different cultures have come out of.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, if you don't have a character who is so interested in other people and so willing and open and ready to reach out to them, you don't get to see all of those perspectives that you wouldn't normally get in these types of stories.
No, and on the other hand, though, even though she's so open and willing, she refuses to sort of meekly smile and accept, like when Marta says crazy, insane things, Anequs is like, why? Like, explain to the fact that she's like, I can read the rules of etiquette, but I need somebody to explain to me why I need to follow them. Because if you can't give me a good reason, I'm not going to do it.
Oh my God, one of my favorite moments between them was when Marta's having that party that she really wants Anequs to go to, and Anequs is like, no, I'm going home. No, don't bother sending me the invitation. I'm going home. Marta just won't take no. And she's like, well, fine, send the invitation. I'll send the no back on a card.
I did find that was the whole journey around etiquette and society was so interesting, but also heartbreaking, because Anequs gets to this point after they receive Anequs and Theod go back to Anequs's home together, and then they receive a telegram death threat. Anequs realizes they have to leave because they're really vulnerable there and they're in their home.
And they're endangering her family.
Yes.
Yeah.
They get a death threat from dragon riders specifically. Yeah.
But after that point, the response from Frau Kuiper and also Anequs is like, okay, I see the benefit of all these social niceties and getting in with these people to use them as protection. And I see the benefit of like trying to change people's minds. And then she plays the game for a little while and then plays in her own way by trying to include more of the community she's found around her. And then the response to that is like devastating. And the response to that is violence, is a massacre. And then you kind of realize that there is no winning, like playing by the rules in the system.
Yeah.
It's you can't escape the violence of it.
Yeah, there's like throughout the whole book there's these two choices that I think Anequs does talk about, but also that are kind of presented to her, and it's like you can either be a representative for your people and prove that Nakis can be civilized, or we will just come and like wipe you out. And it's like those are not the two only options. Those are the two options that you are presenting me with. How about we just stay the way we are and you leave us alone?
Yeah, and you
But
see
there
that
is like
the
this
way-
false binary of like you have to pick. Either do this or this, and Anequs is like, we're not going to do either of those things.
The way Marta does it with the clothes as well, because she's like, well, you can go for something more like this, or you can do something like this. And she's like, well, none of those look comfortable, and none of those seem like that. And then she's like, well, that's what's being made for you. And she's like,
Sorry, you go.
I was going to say gender comes into it as well,
I was
because
gonna say.
Marta keeps wanting Anequs to marry up and to marry out of her status, I suppose. But Theod is never under that pressure because he's seen as someone who can't marry up. Because you
no
have to
woman
be
will take
respect
him.
for a woman, and why, and so it's so, that's so.
And then on that, let's just go to the love interest, shall we? Because this is a book with two love interests, Theod and Liberty. And I personally love that she's like, well, I'll just have both of them.
She's so strong in the love scene. Like when he kisses her for the first time, when Theo kisses her, and then she's like, oh, I was going to kiss you. Like I know you made this first, but this was definitely my choice. And then it's the same with Liberty. I was like, damn, this girl's
She's like, actually, this was my idea.
Yeah. This whole thing, I did this.
I like that one line where she's like, I suppose I'll have to introduce them to each other.
Yeah. I suppose if we're going to be in this situation, they should meet.
That's why I was always so amused that Anequs was always like, I'll just marry both of them.
Yeah.
And never it's like, you might have to ask.
She's so headstrong.
You're cool with this, but are they?
It's fun. You guys are going to
Stay tuned for book 2.
Yeah. I'm going to pick both of you.
Her attitude to the relationships is so refreshing to read as well. But also, she's also a really pragmatic person, even as she's super empathetic. So when Liberty tells her, what's at stake if they get found out, and Liberty's in a very precarious situation where she is because she could get sent back to it's like a poorhouse. What is she?
Yeah, what is it? The home for girls? The something home for girls?
Yeah, and if they're discovered as being together, then she could get taken to the court for it. And then Anequs is like, okay, well then once you've paid off your thraldom, you come to my island where it's fine.
Yeah. We'll all be together.
Here's the plan. And it's great.
But I wondered if that's because in her culture it's a matrilineal society and she's the eldest born daughter, right? So she's the leader in her. She is
very strong as a character. Like there seem to be very few things that actually shake her. More things that she just thinks about that make her feel a bit funny. Like she's like, I can deal with this.
I loved in her relationship with Theod how that shows the impact of what removing someone from their culture is and brainwashing them into this society. Like Theod's like, I don't know, it really felt like he comes across as a character who's in so much pain for so much of the book. And he tells Anequs at one point that he feels like she just has answers for everything. She has an answer for everything and he doesn't have answers for anything. And it was, so beautiful when she brings him back to her island and they find his family. And
I know, that made me get teary that bit.
That was good. And then you can see it's that history of violence that you were talking about as well, Amy, because he's been raised to believe that his parents are murderers, and then he finds out the story of what happened.
Which is so common in settler colonies. Like you find it in Canada, the US, here in Australia, New Zealand, where Indigenous children were raised in academies and missions and places and taught to hate their own cultures and themselves. Yeah, really cut deep, that one.
And it's a strong juxtaposition to her brother Niquat,
Nikia.
Nikia. There's this tension because he's wanted to go to the mainland to learn the science, but not to become part of English culture, to bring that science back to the island. Whereas obviously Theod had a complete loss of his culture and was almost assimilated into the English culture. So there is that tension of like, what is it? I think there's a line where someone says like that he's come to like steal the. No, it is Anequs.
Yeah.
She's stealing the information from the English.
That's right.
But her father is so proud of her compared to the brother, where it's like, well, he's kind of trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And there is that tension of like modernization too. Like, when does modernization become assimilation or that sort of stuff? So, like, you know, I can't really speak to that as a white person, but I did find the tension of that very interesting.
I had two thoughts there about that. One is around the technology and this settler desire to fix First Nations people in a kind of forever past, and how that's also a tension often in First Nations and settler colonies because they've often lost so much of their language and culture, and so to kind of progress forward can be a risk to existing language and culture. What was the other thing? I've forgotten the other thing. You were too thoughtful there. You took me away from myself.
And maybe it will bring you back
Unlock
to
it.
Because, like, I know we can't, like you said, Billy, we can't speak to that experience. But I think what it reminded me of, the tension between, like, do you keep with what's happening now and what is traditional, or do you modernize? But there is, like, a similar fear going on right now. Like, I sort of have Nikiat and the father within me when it comes to things like AI. I'm like, how much progress is too much progress? And, like, it is quite scary thinking about the risks of that progress pose, especially when you can't necessarily always control what it's being done for. You know, like someone like Nikiat has the best of intentions. Other people technically want the same thing he does, but in order to erase their traditions. And then, yeah, right now with AI and literally every other technological advancement, when it's being done under capitalism, it's like technically I'm a progressive, but I'm not that kind of progressive. I don't want that kind of progress. And Elon Musk is someone who used to be considered quite liberal and left-leaning and progressive. He still is progressive, but in a completely warped, fucked up way.
Yeah, 100%.
Anyway, that was my thought with it.
I think the book does a very good job at showing the discomfort of what that society is. And I remember when I was listening to it, because I had listened to it first and then I got all the pronunciations and then I read it on Kindle again because I finished it like last month, in the middle of last month. And I was like, oh, I'll read it on Kindle. The reading experience was really good now, knowing how I like pronounce everything and knowing where it was leading. I did enjoy the second read a lot more. And I remember thinking while I was reading it that this feels like it's so exaggerated and it's so depressing that it's not, because all of these things I was like,
if anything, it can barely cover it, right?
Yeah,
like
I was like, I can't believe that this is like not. It doesn't even feel like a fantasy world. I'm like, all of this stuff is literally in the pages of history. From what you were saying, from the
and
tech
it's still
stuff,
happening.
and it's still happening right now. The tech stuff really got me. The fact that people were like against Xander's like wax pad, didn't really understand it, and didn't really understand what he was going through neurologically. Like the relationship with his family, Anequs and Marta, and I was like, I hate all of this. Like I hate all of it, and it's not exaggerated in the slightest. It's not exaggerated. You know.
You made me remember my second point, which was around when Millie was talking about Theod and assimilation. And I was like, his example of assimilation too shows how awful like it's not like he's accepted when he assimilates. He has to sleep out with the dragons in the dragon hall. He doesn't get to sleep with the humans. He's not treated like an equal human in any way, shape, or form for having assimilated.
No. There's an awful line that he says when Anequs finds out how much Xander's being bullied by the other boys and talks to Theod about his own experiences. And that's when she finds out he's been sleeping with the dragons or with the servants. And he was like, oh, they get angry when they think that you're acting above your station. So they don't bother me as much because they think I'm where I belong. And it's like, oh, that's
Yeah.
kind.
But even Xander, like Xander's thing of being bullied and whoever it is like, oh, they're just young boys, they have to figure it out. And Annequs is like, is that normal? I don't think that that's normal. It doesn't
She was
happen
like,
where
I know
I'm
children.
from.
Children have empathy.
Yeah, exactly.
Ivar Staffen is his name, by the way.
Oh, there you go, Staffen. Yeah,
Ivar
that's right.
Staffen.
I hate him. But I do wonder
That
if it's
pig.
hard, it's hard because it holds up a mirror. And I think
Yeah.
maybe that's why it's
I
uncomfortable.
agree.
One thing that I found an interesting departure from what you might expect if you read like this book, if it was from an English perspective, is how often Anequs is punished for things that are totally either not her fault or that are acts of self-defense or that are something completely innocuous, like
no one told her
going to a
something.
party,
Yeah.
or like. And
the
then
one that struck me was when the first Skiltercraft class, when no one told her she'd need paper and a pen.
Yeah.
And she's kind of gets in trouble and she's like, no one, like, how am I supposed to know these things?
Yeah, and the fact that he's like told her not to speak, and so she gets asked, why didn't you ask any questions? And she's like, you told me not to speak.
Yeah. And then at the end of the book, it's like, oh, you're a hero because you've saved the Jarl, but at the same time, oh, don't make sure you have control of your dragon because we're really worried because the dragon did a breath.
Yeah, because the dragon killed the assassin.
Showed willingness to kill a man.
Yeah. And it's like, even like if this were a white character, it would be the end of the first Star Wars movie. There's like
with the medals.
Yeah.
There'd be a parade and medals, but it's like no,
fanfare.
you saved someone, even
when they say that she's cheated as well, when they say that she's cheated in the Skiltercraft thing, she's like, but he told me to sit in the front row and he watched everything I did. And she's like, I don't get it either, but we think you cheated. And she's like, how is this fucking possible?
I loved that scene at the end where they're doing the second exam in Skiltercraft. And so for listeners, what happened was she aced her first exam and he was like, you cheated. And so then basically she was not allowed to take class anymore. She had to go teach herself, and she took Theod with her, and they kind of just went to the library and did it themselves with books. And so they take their second exam, just the two of them, and they have to have someone watch as well. And then absolutely ace it again, and the professor loses his shit. And it's just like, how do you know these things? I know you're cheating. And the way she just, I wish I could be like this. I can't even do this at my age. But the way she just looks at him and coldly tells him, you wouldn't let me ask questions. You won't let me do this. I've gone and done this. I've done it myself. Like, stop being a little bitch, basically.
Like, you never attended my classes. And she's like, yeah, you are wasting my fucking time.
Yeah.
They talk about Theod, like he's been here for so long and has never been able to pick it up. And she's like, well, maybe, you're
a bad teacher.
Yeah. Maybe I'm a good teacher.
Yeah, it sounds like a you problem, not a me problem.
Yeah, I was applauding in that one. I was like, this is the best.
When she draws it backwards as well, and she's like, why are you drawing it backwards? And then she, like the skill tour at the end when they're messing with the dragons, and then she's like, why can't I draw it backwards?
Well, she's like, in my culture, we go east, south, west.
She's like, so it works for me? Is it right? Yeah, it's right. Look, success. And everyone's like, oh, shit. All right, you're swinging me around.
We usually do. I wanted to ask you about the choice to have the kind of Viking culture that instead of it just being English, I know the Dutch settled, but Vikings did come to the American shores like a long, long time ago. So I thought that was interesting, like that choice to, instead of America, what's it called? New Linvik.
Yeah, what is the new one?
And so Linmarden is the country, and they're in New Linvik.
Yeah.
And that kind of like Vastagot and Stefan and that kind of culture instead of the English culture. What do you think that was doing?
I wonder if it's truly just poking at white people who are like, but my ancestors were Vikings,
Nordic blondes.
Yeah.
Pushing it further than Anglo. Yeah. Like getting it right back to the roots.
I feel like it was a poignant choice that kind of came together for me with this particular passage. I'm pretty sure this is the one. It was in that manner that folk of Norseland, Swedeland, and Daneland wonder what took possession of many of the southlands of the old world, Finland and Western Russland, Engelsland, Frankland, Tyskland, and Poland. Gained through bloody and glorious conquest. The ravens would have us return to such things. to take the south from the Vascoslandish and the west from the Wapashnipi Reichsband with great violence and never mind the cost in lives. So I feel like it sort of traces colonialism right back
to
Right,
the
yeah,
beginning.
yeah, like early Beowulf era type.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
saying. It's like post, like even post Anglo, like that
Yeah.
level of all the way back to the beginning of it. And I did
Yeah.
find it interesting. Like calling them the English and then having them very Norsican, I think is fascinating.
On a side note, Peyton, are your lips turning green?
Oh my god, I think they are.
The dragon eggs work.
Put down the flour and sugar.
You're going to turn into a dragon.
The dragon egg is shaping Peyton's breath.
My tongue is also green.
Episode title.
Your tongue? Is your tongue green?
Is your
Yeah.
tongue green?
Green.
It's all that food dye.
Stop kissing that dragon behind you.
Shaping Peyton's breath. A book club.
When
There's
you
the
talk
title
about
of
the
the-
Is it
sheer
shaping
amount
pea
of the
breath?
inside-
Shaping pea breath.
Go back.
Oh.
As I had the corn
I can see it now.
As I had the cornflower today out to make this, I was thinking about oobleck. I was like, if I just add a little bit of water.
Just don't be ashamed if you have green lips. They kind of suit you.
People that aren't
So you
watching.
just think of it as witchy.
Oh.
Just look a little cold, you know.
People that aren't watching Peyton's lips have turned green from very green food she's made.
All right, were there any last things you wanted to talk about? I know for those of you who are interested, the sequel to what is it called? To Ride a Rising Storm. It came out in February, so we'll all have to have a look at that.
That's a beautiful book cover again as well. I'm
Yeah,
not
it's
sure
like
if it's the same
blue
person,
version.
but they're really, really pretty.
Also, I want to give a call out. If you're interested, Moniquill Blackgoose posted all the stuff on her Instagram too, so you can see them. But the periodic table at the front of the skilters, and then the map. I love a map.
So
I'm a big
interesting.
fan of a map. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I feel like this one, like I didn't look it up. I know some of you looked up interviews and other things. I feel like this is one of those books that grows, like once she's got the series written, because there's only 2 books out now. But I feel like it's one of those things that's just a word of mouth book. Like I said, I felt like giving it to everyone and being like, I've never read anything like this before. Like this is actually unique.
Second one was already out, so I'm almost like, damn, I've got so much other reading that I need to do, but I'm like, oh, I really want to just get into it.
That's a good segue, Justina, for me to introduce what we'll be reading next month.
Oh yeah,
while we're reading.
So next month we're doing queer sci-fi, and we'll be reading Ida by Alison.
Oh, mine won't show. There you go.
Yeah, we're reading Ida by Alison Evans, and I find it interesting actually because I didn't realize To Shape a Dragon's Breath is YA, because this is also a YA.
So we've really
and I
done
feel like we're doing
three
YA
months in a
year.
row. YA year. It will shift soon to adult, but it's also obviously Pride Month, and we're going to be having a fun, colourful Pride Month. So everyone run out and grab Alison Evans' Ida and get reading for next month. Thanks, Abby, for recommending this month. I have to say, that is the most original thing I've read for quite a long time.
I'm glad that everyone read it. I feel like I didn't comment a lot, but it's because it was so fun to sit here and then like I want you guys to read everything I read and then talk about it for an hour. Like take away so much more from it in that way.
Introducing season 3, Abby and.
Yeah. And
she just gives us stuff to read. Well, and I'm a bit sad Dragon Month is over.
Yeah, we can do it again.
Yeah, well, I'm sure with
also
Abby
read
around.
dragons whenever you like in your own life.
Well, I'm going to be reading the sequel soon, so that's going to be my reward when I finally finish this damn book. I feel like you're all in the same boat, except for Harry. Harry's the only one who's really finished his book, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm drafting
Abby
it now.
has. You finished your book. You're just doing a second draft.
Yeah, sure. We'll call it finished. I've had so much to think about now, though, because it's set on a frontier and it's very like it's also. And then when you were talking about how do you have the frontier environment without violence, and kind of the easy way to go is when you're writing a book is just to be like, oh, I'll add violence in and that's my conflict.
Yeah.
Now I'm reviewing my own novel under that lens going, wow, I really just was like violence.
Yeah, well, I always thought that with the McBrides, like how do I create a cowboy series with no violence?
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, my cowboys really do be carrying guns and
and they've got dragons and
yeah. So an interesting frame of mind to think
But
about.
I think carrying guns for, there are purposes for like hunting and stuff that don't necessarily have to be about violence.
Are you guys telling me that like reading books and talking about books helps with your writing?
What?
No,
I think
I'm
you
not
could patent that. Like, I think you could maybe like.
Can
if
someone
you could
tell
give
my
that
undergrads?
Yeah, wow.
You couldn't have told me when I was an undergrad. So.
I just needed to give you dragon books if I'd only known. Anyway, I forgot to introduce you all at the beginning, but I figure everyone knows you now. But I'll just say your names on the way out so everyone knows who they've been listening to. I'd like to thank Abby Guy, who introduced us to Moniquill Blackgoose, who's now one of my favorite authors. So thank you, Abby. Thank you, Peyton of the Green Lips. Thanks for making the snack. I really appreciate that someone puts in the effort every month, and it's usually you, and I really appreciate that. Thank you, Harry Stewart, who did not come in hot.
No.
I thought you were going to come in hot.
Nah, didn't come in hot. I wanted to listen. I wanted to see.
You came to that dragon's breath, my friend.
I did.
Well done. Thanks, Harry. Thanks, Justina Ashman, who I would just talk to all day every time I needed to talk about a book. You're like my favorite book buddy. Thank you to Millie Heffernan. Also, you two, actually, every time I have a book I want to talk about, I should just call Millie and Justina. I feel like you always have the most insightful things to say.
I was going to say, Harry Payton pretend not to be offended.
Yeah. I don't think anyone could be offended by that, though, could you? Don't you sit there in awe when they talk?
I do.
I
do.
I like listen to them. I'm like, I could just listen to Millie and Justina all day long.
I think I'm too
get the winners' medals.
Yeah, this week you can have the Star Wars medals.
Thank you.
I think that all of you are geniuses, obviously, but particularly
there are levels of genius, and I'm just not at that level of genius, Amy. I'm hearing you. I'm hearing.
We're understanding now that favoritism does exist.
Yeah, that's okay.
There are some children that she loves.
Yeah, you can be the death rolls, and these two are like top of the pile. They're my yalls.
Oh no! Wait.
Yeah, let's not. Like, I'll take that back.
Don't take it back. Stamping.
And on that note,
that was a joke, everyone.
That's the cold open.
No, don't you dare. Don't you dare.
Anyway, this up for like 20 minutes.
On that note, we're going to go now.
Goodbye
we'll
from
see
Amy,
guys.
Millie, and Justina.
Yeah, and the others. We'll see you next month for Pride Month and for Queer Sci-Fi, and go get your copy of Alison Evans' Ida. Thank you to Moniquill Blackgoose for writing an amazing book. Everyone should read To Shape a Dragon's Breath, and we'll see you guys next month. Bye.
Poor Justina, there's so much to cut.
I love
it.
it.
Yeah.
Snip, snip, snip.
Okay,
I'm going to cut out all the supposedly insightful things that I said so that Amy looks
crazy.
What you should do is do a real where it's just Justina and Millie going, and then cut to me saying that.
And then cut to, you're my death rolls.
Death rolls.
Death rolls. You two, my yells.